Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question that might just change the trajectory of your life. What if the goal you've been chasing isn't locked at all? What if it's been waiting on you, not the other way around? See, so many people go through life believing that success, wealth, peace, or purpose is behind some unbreakable door. But here's the truth. The key to that door is already in your hand. You just have to learn how to turn it. Let me ask you something that might rattle the way you've been thinking. How many times have you said to yourself, when I make more money, then I'll start saving. When I feel more confident, then I'll step into my calling. When I finally succeed, then I'll act like a successful person. That mindset is the very thing keeping your goal locked up. You don't wait until you arrive to decide who you are. You decide first, and the arrival comes as a byproduct of that decision. Success doesn't belong to those who are waiting for confirmation. It belongs to those who are willing to make a covenant with themselves before anyone else sees the evidence. People who achieve greatness understand this principle: decision precedes destination. If you study the most successful entrepreneurs, leaders, and visionaries, you'll find a pattern. They didn't wait until the world believed in them. They believed first. They didn't wait for applause. They acted while others doubted. The decision to succeed is made in silence, long before the recognition comes. That's why so many never reach their goals. They're trying to live by results instead of decisions. They want the fruit without planting the seed. They want the finish line before they've even taken a step. Here's the truth you have to grab hold of in decision is a decision. Every time you hesitate, every time you delay, you are making a decision to remain where you are. And if you keep making that decision, you'll keep getting the same outcome. Think about it. If you tell yourself, I'll start the business when the timing is right, what you're really deciding is to let the timing control you instead of you controlling the timing. When you say, I'll work on myself when life slows down, you're deciding that life gets to dictate your growth. That's not unlocking goals. That's locking yourself out. So here's the hook. Deciding before you arrive gives you the identity of the person you are becoming, not the person you've been. See, the real secret to unlocking any goal is to act like the person who already has it. If your goal is to be financially free, start making decisions as though you're already financially wise. If your goal is to be healthy, start moving like a healthy person moves, eating like a healthy person eats. You don't wait for the scale to change to decide you're disciplined. You decide today, and then the evidence shows up tomorrow. The reason this works is because your mind and your actions are always in agreement. If you've decided you're still the same old version of you, your actions will follow and your results will confirm it. But the moment you decide you've become someone different, someone destined, someone driven, someone dedicated, your actions will shift to match that identity. And when your actions shift, your outcomes can't help but follow. Think about the stories we admire. David didn't wait to become king before he acted with courage. He acted like a king when he was still a shepherd boy. Successful entrepreneurs didn't wait until their companies went public before they carried themselves like CEOs. They made CEO decisions when no one was watching. Champions don't wait until the medals are draped over their necks to call themselves winners. They decide long before the race begins. Decision is the seed, arrival is the harvest. So if you're waiting for permission, waiting for proof, waiting for a guarantee, let me save you some time. It's not coming. The only guarantee you're going to get is the one you give yourself when you decide. And once you decide, the universe, the marketplace, and even the obstacles begin to bend in your direction. Why? Because you've shifted from maybe to must, and goals don't unlock for maybe people. They unlock for people who live in the certainty of must. So today, right now, make the decision. Decide before you arrive. Decide who you are becoming. Decide what you will no longer tolerate. Decide what you're running toward. Don't wait for the arrival to prove it. The moment you decide is the moment the lock begins to turn and the door to your goal starts to swing open. Let me challenge you with this question. What if the only thing standing between you and the life you dream of is the size of your belief? Most people don't fail because they aim too high and missed. They fail because they aim too low and hit. They built a tiny box for themselves, locked themselves inside, and then convinced themselves it was destiny. But here's the reality. The goals you're chasing right now are not limited by your resources, your background, or even your connections. They're limited by the ceiling of your belief. And the faster you expand that belief, the faster you unlock the door to what's truly possible for you. Belief is not some nice motivational concept. It's the thermostat of your life. A thermostat doesn't ask the room what temperature it wants to be. It sets the standard and everything else adjusts. If you believe small, your actions will shrink to match it. If you believe bigger, your actions expand to fill that space. This is why you can't wait years to believe in yourself. You've got to believe bigger, faster. Every day you delay upgrading your belief, you delay upgrading your results. Think about this. A person who believes they can earn 50 zolals in a year will never accidentally stumble into $1 million income. Why? Because their belief system won't allow them to take the steps required to get there. Their vision is capped. But someone who believes they're capable of wealth, even before the money shows up, starts behaving in ways that align with wealth. They see opportunities others miss, they take risks others avoid, and they create outcomes others only dream about. It all begins with the size and speed of belief. Here's the hook. Belief is contagious, but so is doubt. If you let doubt linger too long, it multiplies. But if you feed your belief daily, it grows stronger until it becomes unstoppable. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You need to believe in yourself enough that eventually the evidence catches up. Belief is the down payment. Results are the receipts. Let me give you a practical truth. Most people are operating with belief systems that were handed to them, not chosen by them. They were told by their parents, teachers, or society what they could and couldn't do. And instead of questioning it, they built their entire life around it. But if the belief you inherited doesn't serve the destiny you desire, why are you still holding on to it? It's time to trade in borrowed beliefs for bold beliefs. When you believe bigger, you attract bigger. When you believe faster, you accelerate momentum. It's like the difference between planting a seed today and waiting years to water it versus planting it and watering it immediately. One delays growth, the other accelerates it. The sooner you act on belief, the sooner the fruit begins to show up in your life. And let me remind you, believing bigger doesn't mean believing without fear. Fear will always knock, but belief determines whether you open the door. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's belief taking action in spite of fear. That's why people who accomplish extraordinary things aren't fearless. They're faith-filled. They choose to believe bigger than their fear, and they choose to do it faster than their doubts can talk them out of it. If you only remember one thing, remember this: your goals will never rise above your belief. The ceiling of your life is set by the ceiling of your faith. So stop treating belief like an afterthought and start treating it like the foundation. Don't wait 5 years to believe you can write the book, build the business, transform your health, or impact the world. Believe bigger, faster, because every second you delay is a second you'll never get back. And the moment you enlarge your belief is the moment your future begins to enlarge right along with it. Let me give you a truth that might sting a little but can set you free. Everybody wants success. Everybody wants wealth. Everybody wants freedom, influence, happiness, and peace. Wanting is not the problem. Wanting is universal. But here's the problem: wanting doesn't unlock anything. Wanting is weak. Wanting is passive. Wanting is sitting at the door of your dream, hoping somebody comes along and turns the key for you. It's not wanting that changes your life. It's willingness. And until you make the shift from wanting to willing, your goals will stay locked behind the glass of good intentions. The world is full of dreamers who want. They want to lose weight. They want to build wealth. They want to make a difference. But when it comes time to pay the price, they shrink back. They want the outcome, but not the process. They want the harvest, but not the planting. They want the glory, but not the grind. And that's why their goals stay in the distance instead of becoming reality. Wanting creates wishes. Willingness creates wins. Here's the hook: the universe doesn't respond to want to, it responds to willing to. The question is not, what do you want? The real question is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to let go of to grab hold of what you say you desire? Because life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're willing to work for, fight for, and sometimes suffer for. Think about the difference. Wanting says, I'll do it when it's convenient. Willing says, I'll do it even when it's painful. Wanting says, I'll try until it gets hard. Willing says, I'll keep going especially when it gets hard. Wanting looks for excuses. Willing looks for ways. Wanting waits for motivation. Willing operates on discipline. That's the gap between those who dream about goals and those who unlock them. Most people live their entire lives in the wanting zone, and then they blame life for being unfair. But the truth is, they never crossed over into willingness. And willingness always requires a price. If you're willing to stay up an extra hour to study when everyone else is sleeping, you unlock opportunities others will never see. If you're willing to risk rejection, to share your vision, you unlock doors others are too afraid to knock on. If you're willing to invest in your growth, instead of just consuming entertainment, you unlock skills that compound into success. Now let me give you the big hooked eye. Your willingness is revealed in your actions, not your words. Talk is cheap, desire is cheap, but action is expensive. And only those who are willing to pay the full price in action get the full prize in results. That's why you can tell me all day long that you want success, but if you're not willing to act, willing to stretch, willing to sacrifice, then your wanting is nothing more than a wish list. Think about any champion you admire. Do you think they simply wanted to win? Of course they did. But what separated them from the pack was their willingness. Willingness to wake up earlier, train harder, endure longer, push further. Willingness to go through pain most people run from. Willingness to commit when others quit. Their trophy didn't come from wanting. It came from a willingness that refused to back down. So the real transformation happens when you stop asking yourself, do I want this? And start asking, am I willing to do whatever it takes? That single shift changes the entire equation. Because once you become willing, nothing can stop you. Obstacles become stepping stones. Setbacks become setups. Delays become lessons. Why? Because you've already decided that whatever the price is, You're willing to pay it. And that willingness is the master key that turns your desire into destiny. One of the greatest lies people tell themselves is that they'll start when everything is perfect. They'll start the business when the money is right. They'll start writing when the inspiration comes. They'll start the workout when they feel ready. And because they're waiting for perfect, they never move at all. Let me drop this on you. Perfection is procrastination dressed in a nice suit. It looks respectable, but it keeps you stuck. Goals don't unlock when you wait for perfect conditions. They unlock when you take imperfect action. Action is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. And if you refuse to step on that bridge until the weather is sunny, you'll never cross it. The person who takes messy, unpolished action will always beat the person who's waiting for flawless execution. Why? Because imperfect action creates momentum, and momentum unlocks doors that planning alone can never open. You don't need the whole plan to move. You just need to start moving with the piece you already have. Here's the hook. Clarity doesn't come before action. Clarity comes because of action. Too many people are sitting on the sidelines trying to think their way into success. They want all the answers before they take the first step. But you don't get answers while you're sitting still. You get answers while you're in motion. The path reveals itself to the person who starts walking, not the person who keeps staring at the map. Think about how children learn to walk. They don't wait until they've mastered balance in their minds before they take the first step. They stumble, they wobble, they fall, and they get back up. And with every imperfect step, they get closer to walking with confidence. Adults forget that principle. We're so worried about falling that we never even step. And then we wonder why we're still crawling through life when we were created to run. Let me make this real for you. You can't edit a blank page. You can't improve a business that never launched. You can't fix a speech you never gave. You can't learn from a failure you never had because you never tried. Imperfect action gives you something to adjust, something to grow, something to multiply. But if you're waiting for perfect, you rob yourself of the very feedback that would have made you excellent. Here's another hook. Imperfect action beats perfect intention at every single time. The world doesn't reward intentions, it rewards results. Nobody gets paid for thinking about starting. Nobody changes lives by wishing they could. The only way transformation happens is through action. Even when that action feels clumsy and incomplete, the willingness to move without having it all figured out is what separates the dreamers from the doers. Look at the people you admire. They didn't start polished. The best-selling author once had a first draft full of mistakes. The millionaire entrepreneur once had a shaky first sale. The speaker who commands thousands once gave a nervous talk in a small room. They didn't wait to be great before they started. They started, and that's what made them great. The truth is, the door to your goal doesn't care how polished you are when you knock. It cares that you knocked at all. Action creates opportunity. Action creates relationships. Action creates breakthroughs. And the beauty is, the very imperfections you're so worried about often become the lessons that build your excellence later. So stop rehearsing in your head and start practicing in real life. Stop asking, what if it's not good enough? And start declaring, I'll make it better as I go. Because the lock doesn't open for the person who waits until everything is aligned. The lock opens for the person bold enough to jiggle the handle with what they've got. And once you step into motion, even imperfect motion, you'll be shocked at how quickly the door begins to move. One of the hardest truths for people to accept is that greatness is rarely built in a single moment. Success isn't one big leap. It's 1,000 small steps. It's not one massive decision that changes everything. It's the daily decision to stay consistent, even when it doesn't look like it's working. Everybody loves the idea of overnight success, but nobody talks about the years of consistent grind that make that night possible. And here's the reality: the process doesn't reward intensity alone, it rewards consistency. Anybody can get fired up for a week. The real question is, can you stay faithful for a year, for 5 years, for 10? Because consistency is the secret sauce that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes. Here's the hook: inconsistency kills more dreams than failure ever will. Failure is just a lesson. You can learn from it and bounce back. But inconsistency robs you of momentum. And without momentum, even the best ideas and intentions wither away. Think about it. Going to the gym once won't change your body. Reading one book won't transform your mind. Making one sales call won't build your business. But when you do those things consistently day after day, you compound results that eventually become unstoppable. Consistency is the compound interest of achievement. The problem for most people is they quit too soon. They plant a seed today and expect fruit tomorrow. And when they don't see it right away, they walk away. But here's what you have to remember: the process is always working, even when it looks like nothing is happening. Seeds grow roots before they sprout. Foundations are built underground before skyscrapers reach the sky. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean progress isn't being made. Consistency is the willingness to keep showing up, trusting that the invisible work will eventually produce visible results. Think about the difference between a flood and a river. A flood comes in with power, but it doesn't last. It makes noise, it makes a mess, but then it disappears. A river, on the other hand, is steady. It's consistent. And over time, that consistency carves canyons out of stone. That's the power of staying consistent in the process. You don't need to be flashy. You don't need to impress people with bursts of energy. You need to be steady enough that over time, your results speak louder than your excuses. Here's another hook. The process doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. You don't have to hit a home run every day. Sometimes consistency looks like singles and doubles. Sometimes it looks like showing up tired, but showing up anyway. Sometimes it looks like small steps forward that don't feel like much in the moment, but add up over time. The enemy of consistency is the illusion that small actions don't matter. But in reality, small actions done consistently create massive shifts. Look at the lives of those who achieved mastery in any field. Musicians practice scales daily, athletes train daily, leaders read and refine daily. They don't rely on motivation, they rely on habits. Motivation is fleeting, but consistency builds character. And the more consistent you are, the less you have to fight with yourself about what to do. It just becomes who you are. That's when the process starts working for you instead of against you. The truth is, your goals don't care how talented you are if you're not consistent. Your dream doesn't care how much potential you have if you're not persistent. Potential without consistency is wasted possibility. But ordinary talent with extraordinary consistency becomes unstoppable. Because while talent opens doors, consistency keeps them open long enough for you to walk through. So stop judging the process by the speed of the results and start judging it by the strength of your commitment. Stay consistent, stay faithful, stay disciplined. Because every time you show up, every time you choose discipline over distraction, every time you take one more step, you're turning that lock one more time. And eventually, through the quiet power of consistency, that door has no choice but to open. There comes a moment in every journey when the door finally cracks open. You've prayed, you've planned, you've persisted, and then suddenly the opportunity you've been waiting for shows up. And here's the test. Will you tiptoe through that door timidly, or will you walk through it with boldness? Because the door doesn't respond to hesitation, it responds to confidence. Boldness is not arrogance, it's not pride, it's certainty rooted in faith. It's knowing that if God put the vision in you, He already equipped you with what you need to walk in it. Here's the hook. Fear doesn't disappear when the door opens. In fact, it often gets louder. Fear whispers, what if you fail? What if you're not ready? What if they laugh at you? But boldness answers back. What if I succeed? What if I am ready? What if they applaud when they see me walk in my purpose? The only difference between the person who wins and the one who watches is that one stepped through with boldness while the other stood frozen in doubt. Boldness is the signal to the world that you are serious about your assignment. It's one thing to prepare behind closed doors, but when the spotlight hits and the chance comes, you can't afford to shrink. This is why so many people miss their moment. They prayed for the door to open, but when it did, they lacked the courage to walk through it. They let fear chain them to the familiar, even though the future was begging them to move forward. The truth is, the opportunity of a lifetime has an expiration date. You don't get unlimited chances to step into destiny. If you delay too long, the door closes and hesitation becomes regret. That's why boldness matters. Boldness says, I may not have all the answers, but I will not miss my moment. Boldness says, I may feel fear, but fear will not dictate my actions. Boldness says, I will not apologize for walking into the place I was created to occupy. Think about every breakthrough story you admire. Moses didn't feel ready to stand before Pharaoh, but he went anyway. David didn't look ready to face Goliath, but he ran toward him anyway. Entrepreneurs, leaders, innovators, none of them felt fully qualified when their door opened. But qualification is not what unlocks destiny. Boldness is. You become qualified by boldly stepping into the arena and learning as you go. Here's another hook. Boldness multiplies opportunities. When people see you step with certainty, even if you stumble, they respect it. Confidence attracts. Boldness opens doors you didn't even knock on, because the world doesn't open its arms to those who are timid and unsure. The world makes room for those who walk like they belong, not because they're perfect, but because they've chosen to act like they're prepared for what they prayed for. Let's be honest, the reason most people don't walk with boldness is because they're still waiting for permission. Permission from family, from friends, from society, from some invisible authority figure. But boldness is the refusal to wait for approval. It's the decision that if the door is open, that's all the permission you need. Because the one who opened the door is the same one who called you to walk through it. So the next time your door opens, don't creep through cautiously second-guessing yourself. Straighten your back, lift your head, and walk like the person you decided to become long before this moment arrived. Boldness doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. It means you won't let mistakes define you. Boldness doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means fear won't stop your feet from moving. Boldness doesn't mean the journey will be easy. It means you've already settled in your spirit that you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. Because at the end of the day, doors don't stay open forever. And your destiny doesn't wait for your doubts to disappear. You don't get to negotiate with time. You only get to decide how boldly you'll use it. Walk through with boldness, because the door you hesitate to walk through today may be the very door someone else boldly walks through tomorrow.